My name is Srinivas Gowda. I am working as an assistant professor in IARE college. Today we will see in the last class we have seen what is SQL, the structured query language, and that data will be stored in database, and we use SQL to talk to the database to get our required output. Okay. Now we will see what is a server, how it is all about. What is it? Because your data is stored in a database. That database is nothing but it is stored in a server. See, you have a machine, your computer. It is a server, and in that your data is stored in a database. Okay. So now in this case we'll see the how your data actually stored in database. So when we install, in this case I'm using the SQL Server. So like I said, we have n number of databases like Oracle, MySQL, SQL, MS Access, Science, etc. In this case, now let us see how your data is there in the SQL Server. So when you install the SQL Server, so we have to go to the Microsoft site, check for the SQL Server, and we have to install. After installing, this is what we are going to see here. We have few system databases: the master, model, MSDB, and TempDB. These are the four visible system databases. That means these are created by the system itself. Apart from this, there is one more database which is hidden, that is the resource. So that is your in this diagram, the left hand side objects, the database are the system databases. Those are master, model, MSDB, and TempDB. So master, model, MSDB, and TempDB. These are the system databases. So, and there is one more database which is hidden, that is called as resource. So resource is the other database which is hidden in the database. This is also one type of system databases. Okay, that is all. Your left hand side are all the database objects, or the databases. And now coming to the right side, okay, we have user database 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in this case, for example, I have 4 databases here. I can have this as student table, student database, faculty database, management database, library database. So, for example, I have here 4 databases. First database is for students, second database is for the faculty, and the second is management, and the fourth is library. So I have here 4 databases here. Now what is a database? Database is a collection of database objects. Database is a collection of objects. Okay, but how data is actually there in the form of files. Data is stored in the form of files, data files. So there will be n number of data files. These files will contribute to a database. Files will contribute to a database. So when we talk about SQL Server, after installing SQL, after installing SQL from Microsoft site, for first time after installing, you see that there are some system databases. Those are master, model, temp, and resource. Master, model, MSDB, and TempDB. They are also called as resource DB, which is not visible. Okay, not visible. and these are the system databases. So when you say create database by name student, create by name student, a database by name by student will be created. So here it will be student, name will be student. So when database is created, it will have some files here. One is the database file. In this case, I have two files, but by default it will be one data file called as MDF. I also have one more file. File 2 is log file. That is called as LDF. That is LDF. So I have two files created by default when I create a database. When I create a database, by default, two files will be created. One is the data file, second is the log file. Okay. Now, by using Management Studio, it is a type of software, type of SQL software used to connect to the database. So this window is a Management Studio, a software used to connect to the database. Okay, the database is stored in the server, and using this Management Studio, we can connect to the server by providing user and password. So in this case, I am connecting to the server called as Goda/Goda SQL. Goda is the system name. SQL is the server name. Okay, server name. In this, as I said, there are 4 default databases, system databases. Those are master, model, MSDB, and temp. Apart from that, there is one more database called as resource, which is hidden, not seen by end user. After that, we have our user created database. Like practice is one database created by the user. Second database is student. So these are the user defined databases. User defined databases. Which are practice and student. Practice and students are two user created databases. There is master, model, MSDB, and tempdb are the system created databases. Now we have seen that there are four visible databases and one not visible database, that is resource. Now we will see what are these 5 databases: master, model, MSDB, tempdb, resource DB. This is not visible. Visible are these 4: master, model, MSDB, and temp. So first we will see a master. Master is a head. Master is like a head. Used to store information about SQL Server configuration. Master is used to store information about your server. So master database will hold data data related to your SQL Server configuration. It used to store connections, permissions, and it can control other databases. So master is like a head of the system, head of the family, and it contains SQL Server configurations. It also store connections, permissions, and control other languages. This is the master database. Then we have a model database also. Model is one more system database used as a template for new databases we created on the server. Means in order to create a new database, we need a template. That template is provided is actually by the model database. So model is like a prototype. Model is a prototype. This is it gives us a prototype for creating a new database, that is model database. And we have MSDB. So we have finished master. We have also finished model. MSDB is almost system databases used for storing information regarding your data. Data means data backups, backup recovery, jobs, alerts, etc. So when I say a database job, suppose job, okay, we'll see jobs, okay, data backup. See, daily you'll be adding some data to your database. Daily you'll be adding some database, you're adding few records to database table. So we need to take a backup of database. Something if a database goes corrupted, then you have lost all your data. You have lost all your old data. So we need to take backups frequently. That frequently will depend upon how critical is your database. Suppose I am working in the banking sector. Every transaction have to be taken backup. So backup is taking a copy of your database. So after taking a backup, if your main database file goes wrong, corrupted, then using the restore, we can restore the database from the backup. So backup and restore. Backup and the restore are the two commands used to safeguard your database. So this information will be stored in the MSDB. This is used to store administration data such as backups and replication. Backups and replication. So SQL Server in the MSDB. This is related to your database security. So security not in terms of users and etc. It takes if you are taking a backup, so that information is stored in the database. Like when this was backed up and when this was restored, those commands will be stored in the MSDB. And also replication. Replication is you have data in one system. You want that to be transferred to the second machine. By using the replication, you can transfer data from one server to a different server. For example, in the real time, Google, Yahoo, they have 5 or 6 servers across various countries. If one server goes offline, second server comes online, and your data is seen without any delay. That means at different places, same data will be stored. That functionality, that concept is called replication. Replication is storing entire information available on one server to other server. Okay, this is the MSDB, and we have the temp DB. TempDB is used to store temporary information or data for end users. Okay. Suppose you have written a query and is going to take a lot of time. Then we'll have to use the TempDB. This is used to store temporary information or data for end users. Used to store temporary tables and also used for query execution. So master model MSDB and TempDB. These are the 4 visible databases in the system. Then we also have one more database, that is resource. We have one more database called as resource. Resource is used to store information about master database and other system data. Resource is one more database which stores information about the master database and other system data. It is the heart of the system. It is heart of the system. It is hidden and read-only data used to store SQL Server data. So this is hidden and it is read-only data. You cannot write anything to this data. It is read-only and hidden. Like it is the heart of the system. I said that master is the head of the system. Head of the system is master, and the heart of the system is resource. Okay, heart of the system is resource. The head of the system is master. In addition to these databases, we can create up to 32,767 databases for each SQL instance. So these are the 5 databases which system has created. And apart from that, we have we can create our user-defined databases. Those are 32,767 databases. So I said that database is nothing but some set of files. So data inside a database is stored in files. You can see that these files in the OS drive. In your computers, in your OS drives, you can see these files. Data files actually store the information of the data. I said that your database will consist of MDF, LDF. Your database consists of MDF, LDF. MDF is actual data of the file. Actual database is stored in the data files. Data files is actual data of the file. Log files or LDF. Log files store, audit or monitoring information. So MDF will store the actual value of the database. Suppose my name was initially A. Now I made that record to B. For example, student is there. Roll number 1. The name is Srinivas. This is the initial record. After some time, I made this roll number as 2. In your MDF file or data file, this is actually stored. This is only actually stored. You will not see Earlier it was one Srinivas, but later made two. Now what you are going to see in MDF is only this two Srinivas. But actually it was initially it was one and Srinivas, later made as two and Srinivas. That information is stored in the log file or LDF file. That information is stored. That information is stored in the log file that is called LDF. LDF means is log file. In this case, you can see actual operations done on your records. So whatever you do, any operation you do in database will be stored in LDF. So this LDF, by using this LDF, we can know what was the previous value, what was the next value, how it got modified, when modified, who modified it. It is stored in the LDF file. MDF file will have only actual data of the system, and these two files, MDF, LDF will form a database. MDF, LDF will form a database. The default file group is primary. See, a file group. What is a file group? File group refers a group of files in a database. File group is a group of files in a database. The default file group is primary. The default file prime group is primary. Okay. So we have seen a database will have two files. That is the data file and the log file. Data file is the MDF file. Log file is the LDF file. Now, how to connect to the SQL Server? So we have to first open the Management Studio. We have to open the Management. You have to open the Management Studio, and after opening Management Studio, we have to choose the server name. See, your database is residing in on server, so we have to choose what is the server name. Here my server name is goda/goda.sql, goda/goda.sql, goda/goda.sql is the SQL is the server name. Then we have authentication type. We have authentication type. Here we have Windows authentication, SQL Server authentication, Active Directory universal with MFA support, Active Directory password, Active Directory integrated. These are the 5 types of authentication. Here we have 5 types of authentication. In the SQL Server authentication, you need to give username and password. In the SQL Server authentication, you need to give some username and password. Not some username and password. Actually, what is the password to connect to the database? Okay. In the Windows authentication, you don't need to give any username and password. If a system is logged into the Active Directory, logged into your network, your domain. Suppose your system is part of some your office domain, company domain, then you don't need to give username and password directly by using Windows authentication. Once you open your laptop or desktop, you give some username and password, right? When you initially, like IARE or your roll number, then password here. Immediately when you log in, your Windows, your authenticated window by Windows. So directly we don't need to give any user by using the Windows authentication. Then we also have the 3 types of other authentication, like Active Directory, universal with MFS support, Active Directory with password integrated. Active Directory is do you know what is an Active Directory? Active Directory is like different. Now this is IARE is one domain. IARE is one domain having group of users. Similarly, Mallareddy will have its own domain. Will have its own domain. So when we want to authenticate with when we want to authenticate with Mallareddy's servers, then we need to have some understanding between. We need to have some common understanding between these two servers. That information is the Active Directory. So your users will be shared with their servers. So that is the Active Directories. Okay. In this we have three types here. Universal with MFA support, password and integrated. So I am choosing here. The Windows authentication, the SQL authentication. Here I have to mention the username password. For SQL Server, default username is SA. Default username is SA. Default username is SA for the SQL Server. Same way, you can create your own users. If you have rights, you can create your own rights. So while installing your SQL Server on your laptops or your desktop, you'll be asked to provide the password for SA. While installing SQL Server on your machines, you'll be prompted to provide a password for the SA username. So while installing this software on your machines, the password should be remembered. This password, what you provide while installing, must be remembered so that we need to use that password to connect to SQL Server. So in the last slide we have seen, I have given here. Again, we have server type also there. Server database engine. We have like the server types are of database engine is one thing. SSIS is one thing. SQL Server Integration Services. Then we have SSRS, SQL Server Reporting Services. Currently, in the initial stage, we'll be discussing only about the database engine. Database engine is the type of server we want to use, and server name is Goda/Goda SQL is the server name. Then I am saying here SQL Server authentication. So I'll be authenticating based upon username password. My username password. My SA is the default password, default username. So SA is default password, default username. Default username. Default username in SQL Server. And so while installing the server on your machine, or your administrator will install, then he will be asked to give the password for so while creating a new server, you have to give the password. This password will be shared by your administrator if you think that you are authorized to do it. So after connecting, I see I'm connected here. I see here the system databases are 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and one is visible, one is invisible. That is resource database. that is resource database. I also have here two databases here, that is database practice and student database. So I have four visible databases of master, four visible system databases, two user defined databases. User defined database. These are user defined databases. Okay, user defined databases. Now we'll see how to create a new database. How to create a new database. So we can create databases by writing one command or by using the graphical user interface available in the management infos. So we can create database in two ways: writing code, or using GUI option in Management Studio. So, in order to create a database by name master, here I am creating a name by name StudentDB. Create database by name StudentDB. So create database is a command to create an empty database. Create database name is student. Okay. I said like heart of the system is, the head of the system is master. So use master go. That means this go is to execute this. See, sorry. See, I say new query. I say here new query. So after that new query, I write use master go means my control will be passed to the master database. Use master go means go is to differentiate two SQL commands. This is one SQL command. This is an SQL command. In order to differentiate between two SQL commands, I am saying go. So first use master go. We'll take it to the master database. Then I'm saying create database. Database name is student. This is the first option is to create a database based upon writing code. The second way is I have told you is that I have told you is by the graphical interface. So after you connect to your database by using the Management Studio, you right click the database, right click database, say new database. Right click your database, say new database. And you have to give the database name here. In this case, I said that default file group is primary. And there will be two files here. One is the log file, actually database file. So database file is the rows file. Log file is the actual log means it's monitoring, and whatever you have done will be monitored here. So here new database you can connect. You right click your database, say new database. You'll open a window. In that you have to give database name, and default file whose primary, rows and log file. You have to give the database name here. So your student database is created. Okay. Create. First thing is we can create through writing command. Create database by using the syntax. Second is by using the graphical interface, right click the database and say new database. Third thing is after creating the database, you see that your database created. Now I have said that something called as database backup and restore. Now your database is created. Now you have inserted some records in some tables, etc. You have done something, and this is the student database. Now, why should we take backups? If something happens to this database, if something is corrupted, this database will be no longer be accessible. That means you are losing your. That means you are losing your data. Okay, you are losing your data. Means whatever you have stored all these days will be lost if this database is corrupted. If it is corrupted or not accessible. So we have to make sure that we have a copy of this database. So we have to make sure we have a copy of this database. For that we have to make use of we have to take a backup of this database. So in order to take again backup, we have two methods: writing code, or using graphical user interface. Now we will see the first part. Okay, you will use the first part. First part is writing code. In order to write a code, we need to know the syntax. The syntax is the syntax would be backup keyword backup database name to where you want to store. I want to store to disk. My path is this: SQL schools backup student.db is my backup name. This is my backup file. The backup file is student.bak. Student.bak means back file. I am writing a command. You create my backup to the location SQL schools backup. So I'll say backup database. Which database I want to backup? Student database to the disk, to the hard disk, my physical drive SQL schools / backup student backup. Now my database is stored to this file. So if I go to this location SQL school backup, I'll find my student backup table. Okay, that was the one way of creating a database backup by using the command called as backup command. We can also do similarly by the graphical interface without writing single line of code. That is, you right click your database, right click the database, right click, you highlight the database name, you right click it. Here you see task, then say backup and backup location. Practice, you right click database name, then you find task, then you find backup, and you have to give what is the location where you want to store the backup file. So I have to say here, I have to provide the path here. Okay, and say OK, Okay, by this you're taking a backup of your database file by using the interface, by not writing the code. Okay, after taking backup, you have the backup with you. If something goes wrong with your main server of your database is not recovering, your database is not responding, then as you have the backup command, as you have the backup database with you, you can restore it. So restore is getting back the data getting back database from the copy, from the backup copy is the restore. Restore SQL command from backup. Maybe you have to use the syntax restore database. Which database you want to restore? I want to restore the student DB, and where this is the path where I have mentioned in the backup file. See, my backup file is available. My backup file is available. My backup file is available. Backup file is available in SQL schools. SQL schools backup student DB. This is my backup file. From this file, from this file, from this file, from this file, I want to restore database. This is the by using the code view. Similarly, by using the graphical interface also, I can say database, right-click database, task, restore, say database. So drop is used to drop the database. Drop is used to drop the database. Again, we have here two commands. Again, we have here two commands, two ways. Writing code, drop database, the database name, drop database, the database name. Now also, similarly, you right click a database, say delete. These two are the two operations. These two are the two operations. Two operations used to delete database. Now, basic data types in SQL. Okay, basic data. So now we have seen that we have to store some data into a table. We need some table. A table means it will have table name student, and this will have some attributes. What is attribute? Like what is an attribute? Student will have student number, name, age, or date of birth, and mobile number, etc. These are the various attributes. These are the various attributes of the student table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 attributes. So in order to store number, I need to store some integer values. Name is a character value. Age is also again a integer value. Date of birth is a date related value. Date related value. Mobile is integer value. So in order to store name, I have to use some character fields. In order to store some integers, I have to, in order to store some integers, number, mobile number, age. I need to have some number of fields. So based upon your attributes functionality, we have some fixed data types here. So character, you have to store characters. We can use char and varchar. When I say char, it is a character field. Varchar is variable characters. When I say char of 20 means exactly it will take 20. Exactly, even though if you use or don't use also, 20 will be allocated. When I say varchar of 40 means you will take anything value 1 to 40. If you give only 5 will be used, rest 15 will be empty. But if you see char of 20, if you give 20, if you use only 5, remaining 15 is not freed. It still occupies 20. But if you say varchar of 40, you can, if you use only 5, remaining 35 will be freed. That is the difference between char and varchar. And we also have for integers, we have big int, integer, small int, tiny int. These will depend upon the ranges. So tiny int is 1 to tiny int, small int, tiny int, integer. So tiny int is 1 to 255. 1 to 2 to 5, small int is some range. After that, integer. Integer is up to 67,000, and big int is more than it is some millions and crores. Okay, that is for the integers. That is for the integers. And we also have like money, real and float. Like you want to float like raise to store decimal values. Suppose you want to store as years and months. So years and months. I say 5 years, 6 months. If I want to store this type of data, I have to use the real or the float or thing. And you have to store the money formats. You have to use the money data type. For date, we have date and date time. You have to store your date of birth. I have to use the field related to date and date time. So after your table is created, this is how it looks. So I have std_id is my column name, age, and course. So integer is to store the integer values. Varchar is to store the character values. Age float. Then course is again the varchar field. So this is the student view table. This std_id, name, age, course are the columns. 1 to 8 are the rows. 1 to 8 are the rows, and std_id and are the columns. So table will consist of rows and columns, column and rows, column and rows, or rows and columns, rows or columns. The items in the items in the color of red are the columns: std_id, name, age, and course. And the items in the green color are the thing. The table name is student view. Attribute names are std_id, names, and etc. So what is a tuple? Tuple is a record. Tuple is a record. See, 101, I mean 23.5 computers is a tuple or a row. Some set of rows is the table. So tuple is record. All the restrictions are of will see. Table is a set of tuples. It is like list, not ordered, but it's unordered. The schema of the table is the database. The schema of the table is the table name, attributes. So what is the schema of student is student plus its attributes. A key is a attribute whose value are unique. We underline a key. What is a key? A key is a pointer to a record by which you can uniformly identify. Suppose I go to college, I say roll number 103, then only one person will get up. That means by 103 is there unique here. By that, I'll be able to get his entire record. Thank you. Have a good day.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.